So welcome everybody. My name is James Mackey again, the founder of Stuck on Replay, and I just want to say that I appreciate everybody for being here in this room for this important event around real comprehensive reform. And can I see this real quick? And really, I just want to talk about, this is our year anniversary. So we started a year ago last Thursday, July 7th. Give it up. And so I said we because it wasn't just me. And so can I get the people who are in the room who played a major role in all the hard work that we put together to get Stuck on Replay started? Can y'all stand up? Raise your hand, do something. Can I get y'all to stand up? Can y'all give it up for them? So Stuck on Replay sprung about because voices from the community was not being heard from my standpoint, in front of legislators as well as policymakers who were talking about criminal justice and how to take a development approach. And so when I saw this back in February of 2016, I was frustrated, and I had a group of young people with me who represent teen empowerment. Teen empowerment's in the building. Say what up. And they represented really well, and so I had a few young people that stood up for themselves, for the community, and said that we can't have what the panel was basically saying because the voices of the community needs to be heard. And so afterward, what I did was I started organizing community members, community organizations around Dorchester, Roxbury, specifically to say we need to step up around criminal justice reform. And if we don't step up, then we will remain stuck on replay. So Stuck on Replay is specifically focusing on elevating voices, uplifting community, and influencing policy around criminal justice policies that's happening right now in the legislation. So right now, 2017, there's a whole list of recommendations and policies that are about to be implemented in this legislation, and we cannot allow legislators to come up with their own specific priorities without allowing our voices to be heard. So over the past year, Stuck on Replay has hosted over 15 events throughout Dorchester, Roxbury, and Mattapan, has captured over 250 video testimonies, and we've been able to interact with over 2,000 community members throughout the state of Massachusetts because we want to make sure that our voices are heard and let legislators know that we're not backing down. And so today is specifically focused on y'all. So we got numerous organizations and advocacy groups here to present what their list of priorities are and why we really need comprehensive reform right now here in the state of Massachusetts. But we can't do it by ourselves. We can't do it by ourselves. We need everybody in this room. We need allies outside of this room. And so when you leave here, or if you want to go Facebook Live or Snapchat it or tweet it, we need you to do so right now. Because what we need to do right now for those legislators who are not here, we need to let them know that our voices still will be heard. No matter if you're here or not, our voices will be heard. All right, so now we're about to get into the group presentations. And so the first group that we have coming up is Teen Empowerment, Teen Empowerment, which is Opportunity Youth United. Can you all come up here, please? Can y'all give it up for them? Come on, y'all. They deep. These young people out here fighting. Let's give it up to them. Let's give it up for them. All right, so I got two recommendations. Can we be as quiet as we can, audience, and whoever is speaking here, I need you to say it with your chest.
Oh, so hey everybody, my name is Malaysia. I work with teen empowerment, and I'm also a facilitator for the Boston Community Action Team, the Boston chapter of Opportunity Youth United. And yeah, I mean, so Opportunity Youth United, we'll start there. Opportunity Youth United, the Boston Community Action Team, has been doing a ton of stuff around criminal justice reform. And yeah, it's been really, really awesome. So like last week, this week, I'm sorry, Anyway, on Tuesday, we did this really great action where we had a bunch of youth from different organizations call the Statehouse, call their legislators, and advocate on behalf of some of the great criminal justice reform bills that are passing through our legislature. So yeah, that's been really great. We had a pretty good response. You know how it can be when you're working with legislators. But yeah, we just hired a bunch of great young people to really keep doing that. Really continue the work that we're doing. And at Teen Empowerment, we've been doing a lot of work around police community relationships. So just today we had our police youth dialogues, and that was really, really awesome. We had a great turnout from the Boston Police Department. It was great. And we have a bunch of events coming up. Opportunity Youth, the Boston Community Action Team meets every Tuesday at every first Tuesday of every month at 384 Warren Street. So if any organizations might want to get involved with Opportunity Youth United, that'd be really, really awesome. And Teen Empowerment has tons of events coming up. On the 26th, we have our police community basketball tournament. So we really hope to see all you guys there. And yeah, it's great.
Woo, this is low. Good evening, everyone. Could you guys hear me? It doesn't feel like it. All right, so my name is Ashley Delva, and I have been a youth supervisor with I Have a Future. I have been working with I Have a Future since I was 14 years old, so for the past 6 years. I Have a Future aims to see a world where all young people have an opportunity to thrive and see success. One way we aim to see that is by playing out through employment. So as I Have a Future, we advocate for youth jobs funding at the State House, and we do this by meeting with elected officials and advocating for the importance of youth jobs. Youth jobs are important because they are crucial to young adults to attain the skills that they need for the real world. I Have a Future not only advocates for youth employment, but we also advocate to dismantle systems that continue to deprive youth of color. And one of those is the criminal justice system. As I Have a Future, we organize around criminal justice reform policies, and just as Opportunity Youth United, we are pushing for the expungement bill so that your record can be sealed if you committed any misdemeanor crime at a young age. And we're pushing for this because there's no reason why you should be held back over one mistake. There's no reason why that one mistake should affect your chances of education, housing, employment, and so much more. The work of I Have a Future is important because we are fighting against oppressive structures that continue to hold young people back, such as you and all of myself. I am here today because I believe in securing the future for the next generation. We live in one of the most richest and most powerful states in the country, but yet we are not being supported. And yet, I refuse to stop until the state of Massachusetts is behind all of us. Please join us in our fight. You can visit our social media pages at I Have a Future. Thank you.
Hats off to James for organizing this Suck on Replay. No, great respect for him. Probably the best thing I can say is the group you just heard, I Have a Future Youth Jobs Coalition, is one of our sister and brother organizations. So that's probably the best thing I can say. We're associated with good people like that. You all been working, you've heard the issues. There's a lot of good groups here. I think the key ask is going to come down to what is the House of Representatives going to do? Because of Senator Brownsberger and a lot of other senators, there's a chance the Senate may pass some kind of good legislation. So it's all going to come down to what is our House of Representatives going to do, and that means two things. House Speaker Robert DeLeo, who has a lot of power at the top, but it also means your own state rep. Can you move your state rep to do two things? One, to support the bills that you've been hearing about, but the big ask is, will they go to the Speaker and ask him to schedule to a vote? Because if your representatives say, I support you, and that's all they do, it may never get voted on. So those are the two key asks. Support the Justice Reinvestment Act, the expungement, the bail reform, the raising age, all the things you've heard about, but ask your representative to go to the Speaker, and will he or she commit to go to the Speaker and ask him to get a vote on these things. If we get enough reps to do that, the Speaker will have to listen, and I think he's open to listening on these things. So keep at it. We got to fight. There's so much at stake for our community, so much at stake. God bless everyone, and keep up the fight.
My name's Maureen McNerney from Mass Inc. My team is a little small here today, and they're the ones out in the hall taking testimony. So if you haven't yet shared your story, please get out there, share your story, and visit stuckonreplay.org. We're really proud of all the work that James has done. These stories make a difference to people. We like to share it with, people up on Beacon Hill that don't come down to the community. So this is a way to be heard, and I encourage you guys to share that as well. So Mass Inc. is a think tank. We're a public policy think tank called the Institute for a New Commonwealth. We publish Commonwealth Magazine. And for a long time, we did research on criminal justice reform and different aspects of how to grow the middle class in Massachusetts, how to have a healthy Commonwealth. And about a year and a half ago, we were doing our usual event at the statehouse where we assembled a panel to talk about young people in the criminal justice system. We had a brain scientist there, we had legislators there, and we had no people of color on the panel. And James and Teen Empowerment came to that event. I know he mentioned it earlier, and you guys called us out on that. And so since then, listening to the community has become a priority for us. We have roped it into becoming a priority when we do our work and we research about the community. We like to bring you guys into the fold. So we have these sheets in the back that's from Mass Inc. that list our priorities in terms of what a comprehensive criminal justice package looks like. Because it needs to include certain things to be comprehensive. We need more than what's already on the table. And then on the back, some of our research, and I know it was used by other groups as well, like the maps of the neighborhoods that show who's incarcerated and how detrimental it can be. That's from us as well. So if you visit massinc.org, we have a lot of research that you guys can use. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. But definitely share your story out in the hall as well.
Give it up for James Mackey. Seriously? This dude? Yeah, much love for James Mackey. So, my name is Rasan Hall. I'm the director of the Racial Justice Program for the American Civil Liberties Union of Massachusetts. So there's a whole lot of things that the ACLU works on, but as it relates to being stuck on replay, one of the things that we tend to be stuck on replay about in Massachusetts is criminal law reform. There's some good energy and some good movement that is happening, and there's some good conversations that are happening at the State House, but it's feeling like we might get stuck. And one of the particular issues that we're concerned about as the ACLU is mandatory minimum offenses for drug charges. They need to be repealed. They don't have a deterrent effect. They contribute to mass incarceration. And one of the biggest opponents to this type of reform is consistently and has consistently been the district attorneys. Now, in the fall, the ACLU will be rolling out a campaign called What a Difference a DA Makes. Do you all know that in the last 20 years, 77% of district attorney races were uncontested? The district attorneys have huge sway over the criminal justice system. They decide who gets charged and what they get charged with, and they make sentencing recommendations to judges. Who are they accountable to? The voters. They are accountable to you all. But a sufficient number of people in Massachusetts, a sufficient number of people who are voters in Massachusetts don't even know that the district attorneys are accountable to them. And so in order for us to really put pressure on this system, we need to put pressure on the district attorneys, and we need to really compel them by the telling of our stories and the advocacy and the organizing and the rallying and the calling of elected officials and the calling of district attorneys to tell them that we need to repeal mandatory minimum sentences for drug offenses.
So my name's Carl Williams. I'm a staff attorney working on racial justice issues with Rasan at the ACLU of Massachusetts. And one specific thing I wanted to tell you all about, which you probably all know about because we're in community and it affects folks that we know, affects folks that we love, it's probably affected some folks in this room, is there was one of the drug lab scandals in Massachusetts affected tens of thousands of people, the one from the Hinton Drug Lab, where people were fabricating evidence, people were forging signatures, people were tainting evidence. The ACLU, along with litigation work that we do, along with public advocacy work that we do, we also do litigation, right? We sue people. So in a case called Bridgman versus the district attorneys, we sued 2 district attorneys, later joined a bunch of other district attorneys in that. And in the Supreme Court of Massachusetts, we essentially forced district attorneys to dismiss about 22,000 criminal cases. And I'll just say one of the pieces that we're struggling with that in that a lot of those people who have their case dismissed don't know that their case was dismissed. You heard what I said? A lot of those people who had their case dismissed don't know that their case was dismissed. So a lot of people in this state, maybe some people in this room, have a good thing that happened to them or had a bad thing not stop happening to them and might not know about it. So what we have is there's actually a hotline number that people can call to find out about their case if they have questions about it. And we're trying to do some education work around that. There's some flyers back at that table. Rasan's holding them. They're in a couple of languages. So folks can grab some of those, put them in places where people are dealing with these issues. People are dealing with criminal justice issues. People are doing organizing work. You can put those out there. People can get in touch with either the website or the phone number and find out more about that. And also, just to put it on the radar for you, there's another drug lab scandal going on in Massachusetts. You heard? There's another drug lab scandal going on in Western Massachusetts where someone who was unfortunately addicted to drugs was similarly affecting samples of evidences, tainting drugs, consuming drugs while she was at work, and that likely affects somewhere between 10, 15, and 20,000 people. So that's work that we have to do too. Y'all can find out more about that from the ACLU, and we're gonna fight like hell and we're gonna make our people free, right? Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Rosie. I'm an intern this summer with the Charles Hamilton Houston Institute for Race and Justice. We're based out of Harvard Law School.
Hi, I'm Bernard. I also work with the Houston Institute.
And you were going to tell them a little bit about the institute, yeah.
All right, so first of all, we're really thankful to be here and really grateful and appreciative to learn about all the great work that everyone's doing. So at the Houston Institute, we're working on this thing called the Marshall Plan, and we believe in 2 principles. We're working to reverse the effects of mass incarceration and practices of divestment from communities of color. So we believe that communities know the most about the issues affecting them, and through our work, we're trying to highlight the work of grassroots organizations in these communities of color and get them to communicate to each other, whether you're working in criminal justice reform or housing justice or education reform.
Yeah, and tonight we just wanted to highlight one of our current and ongoing projects and kind of a call to everybody here. We're developing a new project, what we're sort of calling a community justice activism event. It's these pilot programs. We've already put on one program last year at Roxbury Community College, another at Boston University, and basically we're looking to create sort of activist workshops and facilitate community conversations. And so if there's anybody, any groups who would be interested in partnering with us to do an event like that in the future, we'd really love to hear from you. And so the way to get in touch with us, you can like us on Facebook, which is the Charles Hamilton Houston Institute. Just find us on Facebook. And then also if you'd like to email us, our email is houstonInst@law.harvard.edu, and we'd very much like to hear from you. And us interns are always ready for more work this summer. So thank you.
How's everybody doing? How is everybody doing? My name is Calvin Feliciano. I am a retired drug dealer, 6 years. That is 30 years in regular years. I'm retired, no longer doing that business. Give me a round of applause for that. Changing around. I'm here representing Jobs Not Jails Coalition. I was very inspired by the young brother who came talking about being in DYS. I got arrested for the first time at 13, arrested in middle school for a warrant. As you can imagine, that made me a rock star when I came back to school, unfortunately. But I did 2 years of time in DYS between the ages of about 13 and 17. It was a very difficult and traumatic time in my life. If not for community organizations like Teen Empowerment, who hired a young kid in 2002. Yeah, see, I'm an OG. See, these young Snapchat Teen Empowerment kids don't know me, but I was there 15 years ago. I love y'all. If it wasn't for them giving a young dope boy a chance, and if it wasn't people like my mentor and my second dad, Chuck Turner, who hired me and mentored me and challenged me to think critically, I would be dead or in jail right now. The big difference between anybody being able to move on from their life and having a success story and somebody who can say that, oh, currently I'm the deputy political director at SEIU, just so y'all know. So I'm doing it right now, just so you know. The difference between those success stories and the person that goes back and forth 30 and 40 and 50 years old is an opportunity. That was what I was lucky to get. That's what 99 out of 100 people do not get. One thing we're doing with Jobs Not Jails is trying to create that opportunity. The two big things we are focusing on. One is passing the Justice Reinvestment Act, an amazing comprehensive criminal justice reform authored by the senator that represents Roxbury, that is here, Sonia Chang-Diaz. FYI. And supported by an amazing champion who was here, Senator Bill Brownsberger. Give him a shout out. So, two big things. We gotta end mandatory minimums. We have to end mandatory minimums. There's a bunch of pieces. There's a bunch of pieces to it, but the one big one that I have to leave you with is the mandatory minimums. And if you could do us a big favor, I need you to contact your state rep and your state senator, all right, and tell them that you want to end mandatory minimums. That's the most important thing. There's a lot of people, especially representing Boston, that are gonna tell you, I'm on board. I'm a co-sponsor of that. I'm supporting it. We need them to prioritize it. They are gonna be making decisions, very difficult decisions now, and we need to let them know that they cannot finish doing they can't do criminal justice reform this year and not end mandatory minimums. But if we don't push it, they will. So go on
Go on wheredoivotema.com. You can find your state rep and your state senator right there. If you want to be part, we are going to be meeting in the next 3 weeks, the Boston chapter of the Jobs Not Jails Coalition. If you want to be a part of that, come and see me. All I need is your email. You will be invited. We want people to come together. Something's going to happen this year. And if we don't influence it now, in the next weeks, it will not include an end to mandatory minimums, and it'll all be for nothing. So please help us and keep fighting back. Salute to everybody. And salute to the amazing abolitionist James Mackey here. Salute to this brother. This is dope, man. You are dope, bro. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Caroline Bays with Progressive Watertown. I'm also a chapter of Progressive Massachusetts, and what we're doing in Progressive Watertown, we're hoping to replicate the criminal justice work throughout Massachusetts. We have 22 chapters. There is another chapter here. Progressive Needham is right over there. I recognize them. And they are also doing what we're doing. We are doing a lot of work trying to contact, doing what Lou Fimper said, and many other people have said. We've been contacting our state reps, talking to our all of our legislators. We are trying to contact the media, put letters in, writing letters to the editors. We're doing a lot of work around that. We're supporting the Justice Reinvestment Act, ending mandatory minimums. But one of the things that's closest to my heart is solitary confinement. So our group, along with voting to end the life without parole sentence, we're also working on ending these long terms of solitary confinement. I had no idea before I started this that you could sentence a human being for 10 years in a jail cell with no relief. With no ability to go outside other than into a dog run, with no ability to see their family other than once a week or call. And when they first go there, not at all. They only build up to once a week after 5 months. So this is inhumane practice, and we need to end it, and we need to end it now. So I hope that you will all, when you're talking about mandatory minimums, you will also talk about the fact, I can't tell you how many people are in prison in solitary confinement because we don't know, because we don't even have the data. I do know of people who are serving 10 years though, so I know it's happening. So call your state senators, call your state rep, let them know that what we're doing with solitary confinement, we must know who's there and have some data about what's going on in there. We also need an oversight committee, and for God's sakes, we need humane conditions in solitary confinement. Thank you.
Thanks, James, and thanks everybody for being here. My name is Jared Owen, and I'm a man in recovery. And being in recovery allows me to work for an organization that I love called MORE, the Massachusetts Organization for Addiction Recovery. And I'm here to tell you that mass incarceration is disproportionately affecting people of color, and it's disproportionately affecting people with the disease of addiction. Thank you. I spent 18 months incarcerated because of crimes I committed to get drugs. Now, I had resources. I had a family that got me out of prison and into a treatment facility. But my brothers and sisters are not that lucky, and they're slipping through the cracks every day. They're getting long sentences, and they're going back into the community without a chance of staying in recovery. And guess what? They're dying. 5 and 6 of them are dying every single day in this state of overdose. This is black people, this is white people, this is Spanish people. This disease does not discriminate, and our system is not working. We spend $1.2 billion to lock people up in this state. The Department of Public Health gets to spend about 10% of that amount to treat everyone with addictions in this state. That's absolutely absurd, and we need to fix it. I'm going to pass this off over to Mario, but I'll say briefly, our priorities are ending mandatory minimums, which are used to lock up drug dealers who are not only selling drugs for profit, they're selling them to support their own habits. We want to lessen ceiling times, which are crippling people from continuing their recovery. And we want to raise the felony larceny threshold so that people who commit petty crimes to get drugs do not end up with a felony on their record for the next 10 years. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mario, and I also work for More Than Massachusetts Organization for Addiction Recovery, and I am also a person in long-term recovery, and I am also an ex-guest at the Department of Corrections. And what I do want to tell you is that we definitely need this to pass. We definitely need reform. I'm going to tell you, the last speaker that came up here and spoke about solitary confinement. I did 6 months in solitary confinement. I could imagine what the people that are doing years in solitary confinement feel. I was losing my hair in solitary confinement. I was going crazy, and I have a mental health illness. I suffer from substance use disorder. And did they think about that? No. No one helped me. No one helped. We have to support these laws. We have to support, especially with probation fees. How do you expect a person coming from incarceration to get a job when their Corey holds them back from getting a job? How do you expect them to pay a probation fee? How do you expect them to pay parole fees? It just doesn't, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. So we ask for your support. We ask for you to come up here. We're part of more. We're part of the Jobs Not Jails Coalition also, and we're definitely stuck on replay with James Mackey. Thank you.
Pick up our materials in the back, and we'd be happy to work with anybody in this room on criminal justice reform. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you to James for bringing us all together. Citizens for Juvenile Justice is really focused on how our justice system addresses the needs of young people in our communities, and we do that through a number of different things. One of them is a large coalition of around 50 organizations and a large number of individuals who work on systemic, comprehensive juvenile justice reform to make it fair, to make it effective, and to make sure that young people and their families get support and services when they need them and where they need them, and that young people are not being forced unnecessarily into our system, and if that they end up in our system, they're being treated fairly. So there's a whole bunch of information. We would love to have people join our coalition. We'd love to come out and meet with your organization, with young people, with parents, to sort of talk about the work. One of the areas that we're really interested in right now is looking at the age that young people are held in juvenile court and extending it to both get the really little kids out. We don't think that elementary school kids in Massachusetts should be prosecuted in our delinquency system. We think it's incredibly harmful. So we want the elementary kids out, and we want our young adults in the juvenile system, which has some confidentiality protections, record protections, and where we think we get a better response that's more appropriate and that gets them on the right track. A lot of the young people in our system are seeing really terrible outcomes. We have the worst recidivism outcomes with this 18 to 24 age group, and that's because our adult system is not meeting their needs very well, and we think that the way that our juvenile system is set up is much better suited to that group of young people. So that's why we want to raise the age to 21. The other thing, as I mentioned, we want to keep as many people out of the system as we can, and we think that the communities should design what healthy accountability looks like for them. And so Lee is working on a project called the Diversion Network that is designed to kind of come together and figure out what that looks like. What is community-based accountability and alternatives to court look like? So I'm going to let him talk about that.
Hey, so as Nauka mentioned, we have for almost a year now been working on something called the Diversion Network. We've spoken to 80 different young people around the Boston area, as well as parents, to get their feedback, as well as their opinions, their experiences, and recommendations to improving diversion and have a blueprint for diversion. But we want to do something beyond that, just getting feedback, just getting conversation started. We want to, on September 16th, which we have a flyer in the packet in the back, we want to have a conference where everybody in here and everybody you know who's interested in these particular topics can continue the conversation, but also have a way in which they can contribute to action that can be taken for us as an organization, as a coalition, as people in the community who care about these issues that are impacting the society that we live in. So please, September 16th, come to the Diversion Network Conference. It's right around the corner at the bowling building. It's on a Saturday, which everybody should be free on a Saturday, and it's at noon, and there's gonna be food.
Good evening, good evening. GBIO, that's simple, GBIO, which stands for Greater Boston Interfaith Area. We are made up of 50-member faith-based institutions. And we believe that comprehensive reform would make sure that there is no racial disparity, no economic disparities, and we do not treat people like animals when they are in prison. We are about rehabilitation. We also think that mandatory minimums should be repealed for drug sentences. We believe that pretrial and bail reform needs to be fixed because you should not be in jail just because you were poor. I saw a newscast the other day. A man had $1 million bond and was able to get out because his family could afford it. And right now they are looking for 4 individuals that they think were hurt by this man, possibly even murdered, but he was able to get out. So having people in jail just because they're poor does not make it any safer. We also want to get rid of solitary confinement and all of the time that people are in there. We're not talking about not having a disciplinary unit where we can separate people for time out. Just like you get time out, we realize people need to get time out. But they don't need time out for 10 years. They do not need time out 23 hours a day, 1 hour, and then when they take a shower, they're still handcuffed and can only wash with 1 shower. If you treat people like animals, they're going to come out and they're going to act like animals, and it does not make our communities safer. So we want to be smart on crime. We also, again, like everybody else, want to eliminate excessive fees and fines. I want to thank Senator Brownsberger, who is here, and Senator Sonia Diaz, who are working on some of these things. This is important to me, not just because I'm with GBIO, but I grew up in this city. And we go from one type of structure to another type of structure that keeps African Americans and Latino people down. We need to stop this. And I want to thank the people, the young people that put this together. This is a young person's coordinated event. What frustrates me the most is that some of you, your parents are not engaged. It is very frustrating to me when I'm in the community and our people are not voting, our people are blaming the people who are in jail. They may have been victims, but we need to change that narrative because this is a system set up and designed to put poor people, African Americans, and Latinos in jail. You need to speak to your parents. Everybody else told you to call your legislators. Please do that. But you need to speak to your parents, young people. We need to change the narrative and get them to realize they need to be in here with you. They need to be in here with you. Some of you stood up, you are under 18 years old, and you cannot vote. Please get your parents out. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mallory, and it feels really good to be in a room with friends who want to smash prisons, so I'm very happy to be here. Families for Justice as Healing is an organization by and for currently and formerly incarcerated women, and our goal is to end the incarceration of women and girls, period. And yeah, that's pretty important. And our legislative goal this session is to keep moms out of cages. So we are promoting the primary caretakers bill. Our lead sponsor is in the room. Thank you so much, Senator Brownsberger. This is the second time we filed it, and to be honest, it has been difficult to get the attention of legislators focused on women and moms, but we know how devastating incarceration can be on families and how traumatizing it can be for generations to separate parents from their children. So the primary caretakers bill would give judges the moment to pause, consider a person's parenthood status before sentencing them, and give them the option and opportunity to give them an alternative sentence so that parents could stay home in the community and keep parenting their kids. So there's more info if you want to support the primary caretakers bill. We also have a little radical project called the No Drug Arrest Collective. We want people to stop being arrested for drugs, period, because we know how racist drug policing is in Boston. Yes, for real. And we also know that arresting people that are either buying or selling drugs doesn't actually help anyone. So that group, we're having a community conversation on Saturday, July 22nd from 2 to 4 p.m. At a house right near Franklin Park. So if you or anybody you know has a drug conviction, particularly if you have a drug conviction between 2003 and 2012 when it could possibly be dismissed because of the drug scandal that Carl and Rasan were talking about, we're having a free lunch from 2 to 4 to talk about the drug lab scandals and also talk about opportunities for organizing for more fair drug policy and policing in Boston. So hope you come out to that. Thank you so much.
My name is Jerome. Hi. Is this better? I represent Haley House. My name is Jerome Pitts. I've been out of prison for 6 months. And one of the big things I want to talk about is this is a system that uses divide and conquer to oppress us. It's been used since the cotton plantation all the way up to the concrete plantation, which is prison. They've used bail as a weapon to keep us in jail when it's only actually supposed to be ensured that you come back to court. Now, we don't have solidarity within our communities because these are the same lessons that were taught on plantations that we still live out today. I have friends who are Puerto Rican, Cape Verdean, Haitian, Jamaican, who have fought with each other, and I've seen all their mothers and aunts bury friends of mine, and I've heard them scream and cry over funerals that have happened way too long amongst ourselves in the community. We need to build a base together that's economically strong first, and then we can influence policy and stop these things that are happening within our communities. You know what I mean? We have gangs that are running around that are just offshoots from organizations that started to stop the oppression from police that are doing the exact same things that are happening today that were happening 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 150, 200 years ago. These are the same things that we're stuck on replaying over and over and over and over again. One of the beautiful things about Haley House is they have a transitional employment program. So it helps people transition back into employment. It gives people an opportunity to obtain skills at a career and not just as a transitional job. And that's happened way too often in our community where people are overworked because they're struggling to make ends meet with livable wages. So we need to come together, make our community stronger so we can pass down careers and have more mentors instead of more people killing each other using the same lessons that were passed down from slavery. Thank you so much. I appreciate James for the opportunity. I appreciate everyone here.
Can we give a big hand for James? Let's give a big hand for James. So here's why this is an amazing moment for me, because you never know what can happen when you give somebody an opportunity to come into a new space. I remember when James came here to do as an AmeriCorps member all the way from Ohio. And James came to stay with me, and I said, what are you going to do when you go back? And we had this huge discussion about all the things that he wanted to do. And it's amazing for me to stand here and see what he's doing in Boston, Massachusetts to create change. Let's give him a big, big hand.
So two things. One is I want to give yourselves a hand because I stand here before you first and foremost not as someone who represents just Madison Park Development Corporation, but I was one of the first young men in this state that received 10 in a day as a first-time offender. In 1991, I received 10 years in a day as a first-time offender and wasn't released from prison until I was 31 years old. All right, and so this is why I stand here to say to you that you are representing greatness because there are men and women who are pleading their case. I remember being incarcerated at the age of 20, going on 21, when my daughter was 5 months old. And the courts could not consider anything about my background. They couldn't talk about the fact that I was a young person from 1st to 5th grade that was an A student, that I was ranked in tennis, that I was a young man when I was coming up, I was involved in sports and really supporting other people in my community. None of those things could be considered when that judge sentenced me. And so this is why today we have to work very hard to get rid of this thing called mandatory minimum sentences. We don't want to just get rid of this legislation because it's hurting people. We want to get rid of it because it's not fair and just to communities across this country. There are people who are being evaluated for committing crimes that are much more heinous that get their backgrounds evaluated and looked at and considered. And you got a young man from Dorchester today that will go before a judge and none of the other things that he's dealing with in his life and has gone through can be considered when he goes before a judge for sentences. That is not fair. Let's get rid of mandatory minimums. I also stand here also as a representative of what? You know, usually they had that commercial, and I represent that now because I'm bald, right? There was a commercial, the hair commercial that says, not only am I how did he say it? Not only am I a client, but I'm also a representative. But I'm a representative today of mandatory minimums, but also what opportunity can produce. James is a representative of what opportunity can produce. Because when I came home, if it wasn't for people that embraced me and gave me a chance and saw that there was something better than me than that sentence that was behind me, like that Corey law, then I wouldn't be standing here in front of you today as a member of Madison Park Development Corporation. I'm going to say one last thing. There's one last thing that I challenge all of us in this room to do, is that when you see these young men out here that are struggling, that are actually, they're struggling because of the politics, the fight that they have in them, try to find a way to transfer that energy. Give them an opportunity by talking to them. Just say good morning and say hello. Thank you for hearing me speak, and I want to give another round of applause for James Mackey, because I love this brother to death.
All right. I'm Ed Shoemaker. I'm the Civic Engagement Coordinator at Madison Park Development Corporation. Hello. All right. Hello, everybody. Y'all can hear me? Very good. So I'm Ed Shoemaker. I'm the Civic Engagement Coordinator at Madison Park Development Corporation. I'm also one of the lead organizers with the Rocks Vote Coalition. And what we are is a nonprofit, community-based coalition of organizations that seek to improve and increase voter participation all throughout Roxbury. We do this through direct voter contact, whether by mail, by phone, and most importantly, by door. We go door to door, bringing the message door to door to our neighbors, and that's what we do. And today here, I'm here to talk to y'all about how that connects with criminal justice reform. Now, all of the problems in society are connected to politics, are connected to voting. If you have something as an end result, it's a policy that made that happen. So you go all the way to the beginning, there's an elected official that made that happen too. And then all the way before that, there was a vote. So you gotta organize at the street level. And this is what I love when you see folks, raise your hand if you're registered to vote. I was assuming pretty much everybody, right? So this is what happens when you have a community that's involved and that's civically engaged. Now we have our state senator, Sonia Chang-Diaz in the House, who has been wonderful in leading some of these reforms that we have, and I can't be more grateful to have her representing us in the Senate, and also Senator Brownsberger as well. But that's what we need to do. We need to be active and we need to vote. So without any further ado, I'm gonna pass it back to James, and thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, y'all, so that's the last piece. That's the last piece of all the organizations that had the opportunity to speak about their priorities, the work that they've done. So can we give it up for everybody here and all the organizations that's represented? Because again, they are fighting for justice. They are fighting for justice for the black and brown, Latino, and poor people in Massachusetts.
And I just want to use my mic moment to say, I can make big speeches and hold my colleagues and leadership in the Senate and the House and the governor's office accountable all day long, but what it really comes down to is you. We need you. Nothing that is big and important happens in the State House without a lot of external push. And I want to give you 2 examples that you can carry with you when you're feeling frustrated, or when you talk to a friend who says, that ain't worth my time, nothing ever changes, it's all rigged against us. 2 examples of times of things that have changed because we in the State House heard from you and people heard from their constituents all over the state. One was redistricting. This happened a few years ago after the 2010 census. We get new data back from the Census Bureau the next year, and then we have to redraw all of our district lines for the State House, for legislative seats, for congressional seats. And when we did that, there was enormous turnout and watchdogging and accountability holding from communities of color, civil rights organizations, Mass Vote, one of the partner organizations of Rock's Vote, was there, and we doubled. You doubled from 10 to 20 in the House the number of quote-unquote majority minority seats. That doesn't mean we don't hold all of those seats yet, but those seats are there. They're ready, and there's unfulfilled promise that sits in those districts to hold elected officials and push elected officials in those districts that represent majority communities of color. So that's an enormous victory that we had. Another one was more recent. Just a few weeks ago, when the legislature took up legislation to do with recreational marijuana, adult use marijuana, which we're going to have in Massachusetts now. In both the House and the Senate, the Black and Latino caucus banded together. We worked together in advance of those bills coming to the floor, filed amendments on the House side, filed amendments on the Senate side, and we got several amendments passed to make both versions of that bill, which is now in conference committee. It's getting, compromise is getting worked out between the House and the Senate. But in both versions of the bill, there's really important language to make that new industry and however you feel about that industry, it's coming. Right? However you voted on that bill, marijuana's coming. And it is going to be a multi-billion-dollar industry, and we got language in both versions of the bill to make that industry more accessible to communities that were heavily impacted by the war on drugs. And we got language in the Senate, and largely thanks to my colleague, Senator Brownsberger, his support was instrumental, getting language in the Senate to make it easier for folks who carry marijuana convictions for things that are no longer crimes to get their records sealed or expunged. Major victories. So don't let anyone tell you that your voice and your push and your call and your email doesn't make a difference, because I'm here to tell you that it does. So we need you. Please keep your foot on the gas.